An independent research organization in California known as the Stanford Research Institute contracted to study psychic phenomena under laboratory conditions. The fact is that in this field that has been plagued with frauds and charlatans, many serious people at many prestigious centers of learning in this country and abroad are spending their time investigating further in this provocative field of study.
Structure. Concept. Structure is a singularly important element in remote viewing theory. The word structure signifies the orderly process of proceeding from general to specific in accessing the signal line of objectifying in proper sequence all data bits and RV-related subjective phenomena and rigorous extraction of AOL from the viewer's system by conscientious objectification. Structure is executed in a formal ordered format sequence using pen and paper. A sample format will be provided as each stage is discussed in turn, since different elements are used in each. Definitions and discussion. Inclemencies. Personal considerations that might degrade or even preclude psychic functioning. Muscle pains, colds, allergies, menstrual cramps, hangovers, mental and emotional stress, etc. could cause increased difficulty to the viewer in accessing the signal line, but could be worked through and ultimately are only minor nuisances. Only hunger and a pressing need to eliminate body wastes cause the system to totally not function. It is important, though, that the viewer identify and declare any inclemencies either at the first of the session or as they are recognized, since unattended agendas such as these can color or distort the viewer's functioning if not eliminated from the system through objectification. Preferably, the monitor will ask the viewer if he or she has any personal inclemencies even before the first iteration of the coordinate, so as to purge the system as much as possible before beginning the session proper. There is evidence that an additional category of inclemencies exist, which we might refer to as environmental inclemencies. Extremely low frequency, or ELF, electromagnetic radiation, may have a major role in this. Experience and certain research suggests that changes in the Earth's magnetic field, normally brought about by solar storms or sunspots, may degrade the remote viewer's system or actually cause it to cease functioning effectively altogether. Ongoing research projects are attempting to discover the true relationship, if any, between solar storms, ELF, and human psychic functioning. Objectification. The act of physically saying out loud and writing down information. In this methodology, objectification serves several important functions. First, it allows the information derived from the signal line to be recorded and expelled from the system, freeing the viewer to receive further information and become better in tune with the signal line. Secondly, it makes the system independently aware that its contributions have been acknowledged and recorded. Thirdly, it allows re-input of the information into the system as necessary for further prompting. In effect, objectification gives reality to the signal line and the information it conveys. Finally, objectification allows non-signal line derived material, or inclemencies, AOLs, etc., that might otherwise clutter the system and mask valid signal line data to be expelled. I, A, and B sequences. The core of all CRV structure with the i.e.g sequence is the fundamental element of stage 1, which is itself, in turn, the foundation for site acquisition and further site detection and decoding in subsequent CRV stages. The sequence is composed of an ideogram, the I, which is spontaneous graphic representation of the site's major gestalt. The A component, or feeling/emotion, involved with the ideograms, and the B component, or first analytic response to the signal line. Full discussion may be found in the Stage 1 section as follows. Feedback. Those responses provided during the session to the viewer to indicate if he or she has detected and properly decoded site-relevant information, or information provided at some point after completion of the RV session to project to close the loop, as it were, providing the viewer with closure as to the site accessed and allowing them to assess the quality of their performance more accurately. In-session feedback, with which we will be here most concerned, is usually only used extensively in earlier stages of the training purposes and has several interconnected functions. The very nature of the RV phenomena makes it often only rather tenuously accessible to one's physically based perceptions and therefore difficult to recognize. Feedback is provided after correct responses to enable the viewer to immediately identify those perceptions which produced the correct response and associate them with proper psychic behavior. Secondly, it serves to develop much-needed viewer confidence by immediately rewarding the viewer and letting them know that they are being successful. Finally, it helps the viewer on the proper course and connected with the signal line, preventing them from falling into AOL drive and wandering off on a tangent. Feedback. Correct, abbreviated C. The data bit presented by the trainee viewer is assessed by the monitor to be a true component of the site. Probable correct, abbreviated PC. Data presented cannot be fully assessed by the monitor as being accurate site information, but it would be reasonable to assume, because of its nature, that the information is valid for the site. Near site, N. Data objectified by the viewer are elements of objects or locations near the site. Can't feedback, abbreviated CFB. Monitor has insufficient feedback information to evaluate data produced by the viewer. Site, abbreviated S, tells the former that they have successfully acquired the debriefed and debriefed the site. In elementary training sessions, this usually signifies the termination of the session. At later stages, when further information remains to be derived from the site, the session may continue on beyond full acquisition of the site. Silence. When information objectified by the trainee viewer is patently incorrect, the monitor simply remains silent, which the viewer may freely interpret as an incorrect response. In line with the learning theory upon which this system is based, the intent is to avoid reinforcing any negative behavior or responses. Therefore, there is no feedback for an incorrect response, and any other feedback information is strictly limited to those as defined above. It should be noted here that the above refers to earlier stages of the training process. Later stages do away with in-session feedback to the viewer, and at even later stages, the monitor themselves is denied access to any site information or feedback until the session is over. Self-correcting characteristic. The tendency of the ideogram to re-present itself if improperly or incompletely decoded. If at the iteration of the coordinate an ideogram is produced and then decoded with the wrong A and B components, or not completely decoded, upon the next iteration of the coordinate, the same ideogram will appear, thereby informing the viewer that they have made an error somewhere in the procedure. On rare occasions, the ideogram will be re-presented even when it was properly decoded. This almost inevitably occurs if the site is extremely uniform, such as in the middle of an ocean, a sandy desert, a glacier, etc., where nothing else but one single aspect is present. AOL, or analytic overlay. The analytic response of the viewer's mind to signal line input. An AOL is usually wrong, especially in early stages, but often does possess valid elements of the site that are contained in the signal line. Hence, a lighthouse may produce an AOL of factory chimney because of its tall cylindrical shape. AOLs may be recognized in several ways. First, if there's a comparator present, it looks like, it's sort of, etc., the information present will almost inevitably be an AOL, and should always be treated as one. Secondly, a mental image that is sharp, clear, and static, that is, there is no motion present in it, and in fact it appears virtually to be a mental photograph of the site, is also certainly AOL. Hesitation in production of the B component in stage 1 coordinate remote viewing, or response that is out of structure anywhere in the system, are also generally sure to be indicators that AOL is present. Finally, the monitor or viewer can frequently detect AOL by the inflection of the viewer's voice or the other micro behaviors. Data delivered as a question rather than a statement should be recognized as usually being AOL. AOLs are dealt with by declaring or objectifying them as soon as they are recognized and writing AOL break on the top right side of the paper. Then writing a brief description of the AOL immediately under that. This serves to acknowledge to the viewer system that the AOL has been recognized and duly recorded, and that it is not what is desired, thereby purging the system of unwanted noise and debris and allowing the signal line in its purity to be acquired and decoded properly. Brakes. The mechanism developed to allow the system to be put on hold, providing the opportunity to flush out AOLs, deal with temporary inclemencies, or make system adjustments, allowing a fresh start with new momentum. There are 7 types of brakes. Note, when the word system is used without qualifiers such as autonomic, etc., it refers in a general sense to all the integrated and integrative biological and perhaps metaphysical and as well elements and components of the viewer himself or herself which enable them to function in this mode known as remote viewing. AOL break, as mentioned above, allows the signal line to be put on hold while AOL is expelled from the system. Confusion break, often abbreviated as CONFBK. When the viewer becomes confused by events in his environment or information in the signal line to the degree that impressions he or she is receiving are hopelessly entangled, a confusion break is called. Whatever time necessary is allowed for the confusion to dissipate, and when necessary, the cause for confusion is declared, much like it is done with AOL. The RV process is then resumed with an iteration of the coordinate. Too much break, abbreviated as TM break. When too much information is received by the signal line all at once for the viewer to handle, a, quote, too much break is called and written down, objectified. telling the system to slow down and supply information in order of importance. After the overload is dissipated, the viewer may resume from the break, normally with the reiteration of the coordinates. A too much break is often indicated by an overly elaborate ideogram or ideograms. Aesthetic impact break, abbreviated as AI break, will be discussed in conjunction with stage 3. AOL drive break, AOL-DBK. This type of break becomes necessary when an AOL or related AOLs have overpowered the system and are driving the process, as evidenced by the recurrence of specific AOL two or more times, producing nothing but spurious information. Once the AOL drive is objectified, the break time taken will usually need to be longer than that for a normal AOL to allow the viewer to fully break contact and allow to dissipate the objectifiable analytic loop. Bilocation break, or bilo-BK. When the viewer perceives they are too much absorbed in and transferred to the site and cannot therefore appropriately debrief and objectify the site information, or that they are too aware and contained within the here and now of the remote viewing room, only weakly connected with the signal line, a bilo break must be declared and objectified to allow the viewer to back out and then get properly recoupled with the signal line again. Break. If at any point in the system the viewer must take a break that does not fit into any of the other categories, a break is declared. It has been recommended that a break not be taken if the signal line is coming through strong and clear. If the break is extensive, say for 20 minutes or more, it is appropriate to objectify, quote, resume, and the time at the point of resumption. The viewer declares a break by objectifying AOL break, AI break, bilo break, etc. as appropriate, usually in the right-hand margin of the paper. Immediately underneath, they briefly objectify in one or a few words the cause or content of what occasioned the necessity for a break. Summary. Structure is the key to usable RV technology. It is through proper structure discipline that mental noise is suppressed and signal line information allowed to emerge cleanly. As expressed by one early statement, structure, content be damned, is the universal model of the remote viewer. As long as proper structure is maintained, information obtained may be relied on. If the viewer starts speculating about content, wondering what it is, they will begin to depart from proper structure and AOL will inevitably result. One of the primary duties of both monitor and viewer is to ensure the viewer maintains proper structure, taking information in the correct sequence, at the correct stage, and in the proper manner.